And in the season finale, episode 10 picks up right where episode 9 left off, with Corinthian standing there having just killed the child predator. He tells both Rose and Jed, "I'm trying to save your life from Morpheus." To Jed, that name means nothing. Obviously, Rose knows who he is. And that's when Rose realizes that he is one of the missing nightmares. And when she says it out loud, he admits to her that he knew the whole time she was the vortex. She tells him, "If you know that, then you know he's watching me." And Corinthian chuckles and said, "You think he's watching you to protect you? No. He's watching you because the minute you fall asleep, he's going to kill you. That's why you need me protecting you. Because you could become the center of the dreaming. That would render him powerless and me free." A knock at the door interrupts the conversation, and it's one of the women who organized the event telling him that he has to go on stage in 15 minutes to make the keynote address. When Corinthian walks back in the room, Rose tells him, "I'm taking my brother and we're going home." And he tells her that that's fine, but he plays out a scenario that when she leaves, she's going to be followed by dreams raven everywhere. She's actually safer in the room. Makes a lot of sense to Rose, so she ends up staying. Corinthian then heads downstairs and addresses the entire crowd of serial killers. Midway through his speech, he asks all of the guests to close their eyes, and that's when Morpheus shows up and puts everybody to sleep. This way, he can address Corinthian one-on-one. Morpheus tells Corinthian, "I'm so disappointed in you. I mean, you were my masterpiece. But now look at you. You've walked this earth for centuries, infecting others with this joy of death you have." Corinthian pulls out a knife and says, "All right, I'm telling you right now, I'm not going willingly." And Morpheus laughs at him, saying, "You're going to pull a knife on a dream? All right, let's see how that plays out." But when Morpheus puts his hand up to kind of destroy Corinthian as he did with Galt, Corinthian stabs him in the hand. It hurts Morpheus, but the bigger issue is he can't figure out how Corinthian did it. And Corinthian tells him, "I've got Rose Walker getting stronger every single day. And every second she's alive, you end up getting weaker. She's bringing the walls down in between the sleepers' minds. And now they're all dreaming the same dream. A dream that I inspired." And he's right. Because upstairs, Rose and Jed had slipped into sleep, and they went right into Corinthian's nightmare, where they think that they're leaving the hotel, but when they get downstairs, they see these serial killers chopping up bodies, and they're surrounded. And when Corinthian starts bragging about the fact that Rose Walker is currently in his nightmare, Morpheus says, "Well, then she's not beyond my reach." But as Corinthian points out, the issue is she knows you want to kill her. That doesn't stop Morpheus from going to visit her, and he shows up out of nowhere and tells Rose, "You need to wake up." But Corinthian had followed Morpheus into Rose's dream, and he tells her, "Don't listen to that guy." So you just got a battle of Corinthian versus Morpheus on whether or not Rose should wake up or not. During this squabble, Rose confronts Morpheus on the fact that he's planning on killing her. And he says, "Well, let me explain to you why. When a vortex brings down the walls between dreams, she creates a single volatile dream that will collapse in upon itself and take the waking world with it. In layman's terms, the world, everything, everyone she knows, it's all going to die." Rose can't take the squabbling between these two, so she says, "All right, enough. If I'm as powerful as you guys say I am, I'll find my own way. But in the meantime, the walls go back up." And then she wakes up. She is safe in her bed, but Morpheus and Corinthian are downstairs. Corinthian once again hammers home the point that he's not planning on going back to the dreaming, but Morpheus tells him, "Oh, yeah, you're not going back there. I'm going to uncreate you." And then he puts up his hand, and within a matter of seconds, Corinthian is nothing more than a bunch of dust and one tiny, tiny skull. He then heads into the conference room where all the serial killers are still sleeping, and he reams them out for being, quote, collectors. He tells them that the dream that they were living in is over. And he's talking about all those daydreams that they have, where they are right, it's done. From this moment on, they're going to know how selfish and monstrous they truly are. They're going to feel the pain of those who they've slaughtered. And they'll also feel the grief of those that mourn those people. In a nutshell, they're going to have no reason to live, and some of them realize that pretty quickly, and they kill themselves. The convention just empties out into the street. Some people call the police right away and confess to murders. Others just kind of drive off into oblivion. Rose and Jed leave the convention, but they get in their car and they head back to Florida. On the drive, Rose fills Jed in on what happened to their mother, how much she loved him, how much she kept looking for him. But she also fills him in on the fact that they have a great-grandmother who wants to meet him. But their trip gets a little detoured when Lyda calls and tells them that she's in the hospital and she's about to go into labor. Lyda's not alone. The entire B&B is there supporting her, but instead of going to the B&B, Rose and Jed are going to head to the hospital to be with Rose's friend. When they get to the hospital, Rose introduces Jed to the entire B&B, but there is one person missing, and that's Gilbert. Rose still doesn't know where he is. They don't really focus too much on it because, Lyda is currently going through labor. But when Rose gets a little bit of free time, she calls up Unity to let her know that she currently has Jed. But she also asks Unity, hypothetically, of course, that if something were to happen to her, would Jed be able to come live with Unity? And Unity says, of course. I was actually going to suggest that both you and Jed come live with me anyway. This is a big relief for Rose. She thanks Unity, and then she gets off the phone. A nurse then comes and finds Rose because Lyda is asking for her. Rose fills Lyda in on everything, and her big fear is that when she falls asleep that night, Morpheus is going to come and kill her. Lyda, being a good friend trying to make Rose feel better, says, well, if all of this is true, and you have the power to destroy the world, then you also have the power to destroy him. But Rose tells her, I don't want to destroy him. I don't want any of this. But Lyda hammers home the point that when Rose goes to sleep that night, she has to find Morpheus and end this. So that night when Rose dreams, she finds herself first in Hal's dream, but then she finds herself in a meadow with the entire B&B, all going through their dreams. And with everybody in this field not knowing what's going on, a true vortex starts. Rose can't stop it. She just starts apologizing to them, but one by one, it starts sucking them up. But the worst part about all of this is Jed shows up in his Sandman superhero costume, thinking that he can save the day, but he can't. He gets sucked up by the vortex. And when it looks like Rose is going to face the same fate as the rest, she suddenly finds herself in a winter setting, and there's Morpheus. He tells her that already she's created a great deal of damage. The good news is it's nothing he can't repair. When Rose frantically asks what happened to my friends, Morpheus tells her they're asleep in their beds. But they're not safe. No one is. Not until the vortex is dead. As these two chatted up, back at the library in the dream realm, as Lucienne is doing her job, Unity Kincaid shows up. And this is truly a first. Unity tells Lucienne, I'm just looking for a book. And the good news is she came to the right place. The library has every book ever written, and even books that haven't been written yet. But Unity is looking for one particular book. She wants to read about her unlived life, the life that she would have had she not fallen asleep. And then she finds it. But when Lucienne sees the book she picked up, she puts two and two together and realizes that Unity is Rose Walker's grandmother. So Unity starts reading the book on her unlived life, while her granddaughter is trying to get pitched on the idea of dying. But that's when Gilbert shows up. Fiddler's Green wants to sacrifice himself so that his friend can live. But as Morpheus tells him, I'm sorry, that's not possible. And all of this is pretty surprising to Rose, who thought that Gilbert was just a guy named Gilbert. They have to explain to her, no. Gilbert was actually one of the missing pieces of the dream realm. His true identity isn't actually a person, it's a place called Fiddler's Green. They then start talking about the whole purpose of why a vortex even exists if it has to die. Gilbert gives an unbelievable theory, and Morpheus tells him, this is the exact reason why I couldn't find it in my heart to punish you. But it is time you took up your actual role. And Gilbert tells Morpheus, it would be my honor. It was never my intention to abandon it. He then turns to Rose and says, after you die, if you stay in the dreaming, come visit me. Walk in my meadows, sit under my trees. And then he says goodbye. And all of a sudden, that winter setting that they're in completely changes to the most beautiful, serene-looking place. But now, unfortunately, it's time for Morpheus to have to do what he has to do. He's got to kill Rose. He gets ready to do so, but he's stopped by Lucienne and Unity, who is still holding the book that tells the story of her unlived life. And she found something really interesting in it. According to the book, she was supposed to be the vortex. But because he was in prison, that fate was handed down to her descendants, like Rose. So in reality, it should be Unity that has to die, and not Rose. Unity then looks at Rose and says, take the vortex out of your body. It's the dream world. You can do that. And Rose had never thought about it, but she's able to. She takes it out, Unity looks at it, and now she is the dream vortex. So Morpheus ends up killing her, but he only kills her in the real world. In the dream realm, it just looks like she got knocked out and doesn't really know where she is at the moment. Morpheus fills her in on the fact that she just died so Rose could live. And Rose feels really guilty about this, but as Unity tells her, I should have died a long time ago. But then again, if I had, I would have never met my golden-eyed man. And we would never have had our beautiful baby girl, which means that you wouldn't have been here. Morpheus stops her and says, wait, the father of your child had golden eyes? And Unity confirms it. And the thing is, Morpheus knows exactly who Unity's dream man was. It was Desire. Unity then turns to Rose, says her goodbyes, and assures her that her and Jed will be taken care of. Mr. Holdaway will make sure of it. Morpheus then tells Rose, you and your brother are children of the Endless. You may leave this place. Goodbye, Rose. And then Rose wakes up. She's kind of taking in everything that happened to her, but then she gets a text message from Lyda telling her that she had a healthy baby boy. So her and Jed head over to the hospital to meet him. And he doesn't have a name yet. I mean, Lyda did just become pregnant like a day ago. Rose then exits the room and gives the B&B an update on what's going on with Lyda, the baby, but mainly the fact that they're planning on flying back to New Jersey the next day. And that piques the interest of Hal, who says, how far is New Brunswick from New York? And it's only an hour. The dream of becoming a Broadway actor has bit him again, and he says aloud, maybe I'll just sell the B&B and move back. That's when Zelda tells him that they'll buy the house, and they'll take over the B&B. So a day later, Rose, Jed, Lyda, the baby, Hal, they all move back to New Brunswick together. And Rose took Hal's advice. She wrote a book called Into the Night, and she submitted it to a publisher. But little does she know that Into the Night will, in fact, be a published novel. It arrived in Lucien's library. Lucien, though, has to wait for Morpheus to get back, because after the revelation that Desire was the one who impregnated Unity Kincaid, he wants to have a word. He visits Desire and tells him Unity Kincaid should have been the vortex of this era. But someone took advantage of my imprisonment, and then that same person fathered a child with her, knowing full well that it would become the vortex, and I would be forced to kill a child of the Endless. It was an impressive plan, but Morpheus asked Desire, what did you exactly intend? I mean, you knew what would happen if I spilled family blood. And all Desire can say is, well, this time it almost worked. Morpheus then grabs Desire by the head and says, mess with me or mine again, and I shall forget your family. Do you believe that you're strong enough to stand against me? And Desire just has to say, no. Morpheus lets Desire go and says, remember that next time you're inspired to interfere in my affairs. But the bad blood between these two is not over. Morpheus then heads back to his realm and starts working on new nightmares, new dreams. And that's when he's visited by Lucien, who gives him the update that Rose Walker's book arrived in her library. Lucien then goes to walk away, but Dream says, wait, you don't want to say hello? Because the dream that Morpheus is working on is Galt. Morpheus really listened to Lucien this time, and he decided, you know what? People can change. So he decided to make Galt what she wanted to be, and that's a dream, not a nightmare. Morpheus tells both of them, I had no right returning here after a century and expecting everything to be just as I left it. Lucien tried to tell me that. I didn't want to listen, but I'm listening now. Galt then flies off, and Morpheus looks at Lucien and says, I might be here a while. Do you mind keeping tabs on everything while I work? And Lucien is more than happy to do that. But as Morpheus works on new nightmares and new dreams, over in hell, Lucifer gets told that Lord Azazel would like a word with her. Lord Azazel just looks like a rift with a bunch of demon faces in it. And he tells Lucifer, I'm going to be brief. I'm here at the bidding of the assembled lords of hell. And we have a common enemy. It's Dream of the Endless. The armies of hell are yours to command should you wish to strike. And they would be more than willing to invade the dreaming if you command it. Maybe after that, the waking world and even Silver City. I mean, since none of us can leave hell, might as well expand its borders a bit. But don't just think about this. The generals demand action. Lucifer kind of finds that amusing and tells Azazel, well, then I shall act. Once Azazel leaves, Lucifer does say, he's not to be trusted, but he's not wrong. I'm going to do something that I've never done before. Something that will make God absolutely livid and bring Morpheus to his knees. And that is the end of Season 1 of The Sandman. Thank you so much for getting this part of the recap. I really appreciate it. There's a link to my Patreon in the bio. If you click it and subscribe, you get stuff. There's also merch. You could do that too. Subscribe, like, dislike, thumbs up, thumbs down, comment, don't. But just know I appreciate you getting this far.